Hello and welcome to Live Lunch. Oh my gosh, what episode are we?
I have no idea what episode
Episode something.
But we're here, that's the main thing.
But yeah, we are here. I'm joined by Matt Carvel. We're on episode 8, apparently. There we go.
We did talk about that before we started.
Yeah, there we go. We are on episode 8 and we are going to be discussing the topic of Brexit. Can I please just say that us having fish and chips, which is traditionally British, is not us supporting any side like this.
It's not like subliminal.
Yeah, we don't know where the fish is from.
Yeah, that's true.
The fish could be from somewhere in Europe, so...
Probably not a landlocked country, but
no,
apart from that.
Yeah, but there we go, fish and chips, that's what we're having today. So I hear that you might need to run off.
Yes, I'm here, but you never know, I might have to shoot out at any moment because, we are expecting a baby. So I have actually got my phone here, just in case. But hopefully we'll make the half hour. But it's unlikely, but it's possible. There's the drama for today's episode.
And that is totally cool. Do you have a name?
No, we don't know if it's a boy or a girl either. So
yeah,
we've had to sort of come up with more than one name, which is even more difficult.
Wow.
People can text it in.
You can. We're open to suggestions. Yeah.
There we go.
Won't listen to them, but we're open to them.
I've got a baby name for either boy or girl. Send it in. We are covering the topic of Brexit, but it is also actually Halloween.
Yeah, we could say this is not like a Halloween special episode. We could just fast forward a bit of the Brexit and just talk about Halloween. But we will talk about Halloween before we finish today.
But back to what happened on Sunday. Could you give me a 30-second overview, 30-ish seconds?
Yeah, so Joel, covered a lot of ground really, and especially in terms of Brexit is something that obviously is all around us all the time in terms of the news coverage, but it affects people in different ways. For some people, it is just something that is now annoying, and it just people are fed up with it. For other people, actually, this has caused real division in family, in friendship groups, in the office. It's caused people relational difficulty, how to navigate it with different people voting in different ways, even within a family, and also in terms of, for many people, because of their nationality or because of their job and the where they work, there are real practical things that have suddenly, even though we are still in the EU and nothing has changed in one sense, but actually a lot has changed already in terms of how businesses have to try and navigate this, and all the uncertainty has made a lot of people's lives very, very difficult. And so when we're talking about anxiety, there's that element of anxiety about what's going to happen in the future, but also it's about stress and anxiety of what's happening now, what's going to happen with my family, what's going to happen with my job. And these are things that are really real to people, and it's important for us all to acknowledge that and not just think, oh, this is just something that's it's happening in the Houses of Parliament. No, this is something that's happening on our streets as well. So Joel was talking about that and talking about how how should we respond to it as Christians? Is God on one side or the other? And Joel spent a good amount of time sort of making the case that there's good Christian reasons to support either side in the referendum vote, and so we shouldn't, as a Christian, think, well, God's on our side. There's a temptation to do that, and with this issue politically, as well as anything really, just think, because I think something, surely God must think that too, and just align. But it's more complicated than that. So where we got into the Bible was in Psalm 46, and Joel really directed our attention to the word though. So because it talks about difficulty in life, nations rising and falling and that sort of thing, but the word though, it means that is expected. Though these things happen, though there's difficulty, though there's tumult in the world around us, God is still good. God is still in control. God actually provides even refreshment. The psalm talks about the river of God that runs through the city. And so Joel sort of helped us to focus on God's power and his presence and his purpose. Through all these things, actually, God is, as I say, a sovereign God, a God who is in control, but also offers refreshment to us. We can enjoy a relationship with him, a filling of the Spirit, the encouragement of his promises. We know world history is going. That doesn't mean it's easy and straightforward and there's not stresses in it, but actually God is the God who rules, that he's bringing history to a certain point. Jesus will come again. There'll be a new heavens and earth, and so that perspective is what God invites us into, and that helps us. All those things, his presence, the fact that we know where history is going, can be a source of comfort to us, even if we are in the real throes of difficulty because of the political uncertainty and what's happening in our nation right now.
That was really good. Thank you very much. By the way, if you have any questions, please send them in. I've got the Instagram here, so I can check them out. Or you guys in the room, it's like question time here. If you have any questions, just shout them out. Obviously, there's been further developments with Brexit this week. We don't even know. Like, it probably might happen at the end of January. So there is more confusion, there's more delay, and there's more frustration towards the MPs and our government. But how do we respond to them as Christians?
Yeah, I think with the further delay and the further uncertainty that we've seen this week, even since Sunday, it's changed, and we scheduled this message to be just before the 31st. I think at the same time acknowledging, will we leave, won't we leave? Well, at least we definitely will be talking about this topic, and our nation will be, whatever. But I think with the uncertainty and with the real difficulty that people are facing, there is a temptation, and we're seeing it on our TV screens, and is a frustration and anger even towards those who are in power, MPs and that sort of thing. And I think it's easy to get swept up in that, whichever side of the debate we find ourselves on, or even if we're kind of neutral, but we just want things to move on. And I think as Christians, it's important that we navigate that well, and we don't unthinkingly just... It's very easy to adopt the attitude towards those in authority in our country. Joel mentioned on Sunday about the level of distrust. This, 70% think that our politicians are dishonest. And the Bible says something interesting about this, in that it encourages us and even commands us to be obedient and to be respectful and to be honoring to those in authority, not saying that they necessarily deserve it. And I think as Christians, we can sometimes think, well, I'll pray for my leaders and I'll celebrate those in authority and speak well of them when I agree with them or I think they're doing a good job. But actually, the Bible doesn't quite call us to that. It calls us to honoring and be respectful to our leaders because they are leaders, not because of what they do or don't do. And the reality is, we've even seen this week there are, in one sense, plenty of reasons that our MPs give us not to trust them. When we see some of their behaviour, not all of them, it's easy to just see the ones that make the headlines and think that sums up all MPs, which is incredibly unfair. But it's easy, there's a sort of, that sort of have I got news for you tone, which is to mock our leaders, and it's something that's very easy to do, and sometimes our leaders make it easy to do. But that doesn't mean that we should do that, and actually it dishonors God, because to God authority is not a bad word, and we can easily get into this. Well, there's an authority. Of course we mock them. Of course we undermine them because we don't like authority. But God says authority is something good, and our leaders are there to bless us. And actually, even if they don't do things that we agree with, it still honors God to honor them. And that is difficult and it's countercultural, but it is something that God calls us, that He calls us to.
That's really good. Yeah. So we need to trust God in this time. I think there's so much change, and I think, the best way to do it is to trust God. But how do we do that practically? What does that look like?
I mean, that's we're, as we say, eight weeks into this series really, and it's not a surprise that this problem of anxiety manifesting in different ways. What's the response to that? Well, it's about trusting God. It's about relationship with God. But it's important also, what does that look like practically? Because I think maybe one of the temptations is to think, well, everything's kicking off in Westminster, and who knows what's going to happen, so let's just get together and sing some worship songs and just ignore what's going on, and that can be a real temptation. And in one sense, we should celebrate God in the uncertain times as well as the more settled times. But also, I think it's godly and it's being obedient to God's word to be wise in this time. Like, the economy is an uncertain place right now. People's job security, there's real threat to that by what might happen in the next couple of years. God's called us to be good stewards of the resources that he's given to us, and right the way through the Bible, not least in the Proverbs, wisdom is commended. Sometimes people think, the Bible, it's a spiritual book, and it's just about spiritual things, as if that was something that's against being intelligent and smart. No, actually, again and again, the Bible commends wisdom. We should be wise. If the times are uncertain, economically speaking, it's good to save. It's good to be financially savvy. It's good to be, and that's not a lack of faith. That's wisdom. And you think of even in the Old Testament, there's examples of that. Joseph, God raised up Joseph to lead Egypt and be the prime minister there, and they were a nation that flourished in the midst of famine, and God actually gave him insight to what was going to happen, and so he was wise. So he made practical steps so that he could, and their nation even, could be a blessing to others even when things are wrong. And I think that's how a Christian can anticipate this as much. So for some, it's not as possible as for others. But who knows what's going to happen? But if we're headed into a time in our nation that there's going to be more poverty, more unemployment, that sort of thing, we as individuals and we as a church, we want to be a blessing to people. We want to continue to be a blessing, and there's going to be more opportunity to help those in need and help those in poverty in the future. So let's be wise about our resources now, so that we can be that sort of blessing to them. We can't be a financial blessing to others if we don't have the resources to do. If we're unwise with money now, or frivolous with money, or just not caring and calling that faith, we can't help those in the future. So that's one thing to do in terms of the financial thing.
And we've got like the Thrive Money course as well.
Yeah, we're doing that. So we're doing that right now. So this term we've launched what we call Thrive Money, which is exactly about that. How can we be good stewards of what God has given us? The Bible calls us, when it comes to money, the Bible calls us to be generous and to be good stewards. And actually, when we are good stewards, it enables us to be more generous. And so those two things can feed together. Sometimes when we talk about money, we can just be what it looks like to have faith is just be extravagantly generous, and that's part of it. But there's also the first thing that God gives Adam and Eve to do is be in the garden and cultivate the garden, and cause it to flourish, cause it to grow. It's like he's saying, here's some wealth, the natural result, manage that wealth. That's the first call on humanity in regards to the earth. So that's really important, and something we can easily miss and just think, we'll just sit tight and see what happens. No, we can be proactive in this time as well.
That's good.
And I think the other thing as well, as we're saying every week really, but with this anxiety series, cultivating the relationship with God. And I think sometimes these things, when there is big uncertainty, they can hit us strongly, and that reveals that actually our hope was in things going well for us. We had real hope in the fact that we have a job, and when that becomes uncertain, then we think, oh no, my life's falling apart. Well, actually, for the Christian point of view, my life was held by God in the first place, and we see our employment, we see the homes that we live in as blessings from God, and we're thankful to God for them, and cultivating that a thankful attitude is a way to navigate this as well. And because otherwise, if we're not thankful for what we already have, we'll be constantly worrying about what we don't have or what we might not have in the future. And cultivating that dependence on God, gratefulness to God. I mean, I've found it in my life. There's financial challenges, there's things in life that don't go the way you want to go, and you think, it's easy to get frustrated about that, it's easy to worry about that. Oh no, wait. God has provided for me thus far, and he promises to do that, and I need to keep coming back, because I'm forgetful. We're forgetful of the good things that God has given us, and coming back to that and cultivating that relationship is important for all of us, including church pastors.
Yeah, he's always going to provide fish and chips. It's good. Yeah. Obviously, this 31st of October is no longer Brexit Day, but it is Halloween. Yeah, Halloween is obviously a topic that we don't really speak about, really, do we? Do we speak about it?
Not often in church, no. But I think it seems to me, and I'm sure other people think that as well, that is more and more a part of our society. You can't go into a supermarket right now we're bombarded with Halloween stuff, and a huge amount of that is obviously just marketing and that sort of thing, and latching on to an idea. But I think. I think for a Christian, it's more in our face than ever before, and I think it's provoking us. Okay, how do I respond to this? And I think, I guess a simple analysis of it is like, well, Christians, we love Jesus and we love the light and we love what is good, and Halloween seems to be a celebration of things that are dark, and maybe it's not too serious, but still sort of horror films and things that are dark and spooky and that sort of thing, and it's easy that's got nothing to do, we shouldn't want anything to do with it, and so one way of responding to Halloween as Christian is just to try and avoid it as much as possible, and just say, well, that's an aspect of society I don't want to celebrate, I don't want to get involved in, and that's the way to handle it. And probably for myself, for many years, that has been the way I've done it, and I think that approach is good, but is increasingly difficult to do, and especially when you have kids.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Because as a parent, and you even my kid is in nursery, and they're doing Halloween stuff this week. And if you're in schools, and they'll do Halloween things, and there's a pressure for older children to go to parties or go to that sort of thing, and you're thinking, okay, how do I navigate that as a Christian? Because on one hand, it's like, well, it's sort of harmless. It's just kids dressing up and having a bit of fun, but there's also a sort of dark undertone. I mean, I was in co-op yesterday and just having the sort of blood spattered stuff on the floor, and this is like this has gone quite far here, I don't like it, but it's happening. And we want to be Christians that are not just have that bunker mentality of like, well, push the world away and we'll just do our own thing. We want to engage with people and engage with them, and engage in a conversation. But how do you navigate that? So, I mean, the simple answer is we've put a few resources on our website to help people think about it, and to explain a little bit more. There's a video there by our good friend Glenn Scrivener, who's spoken many times here at Emmanuel, and that talks about it and gives a little bit about the background of it. And there's sort of different articles there about, okay, what should we do? Should we shut the door on it, or should we engage with our friends and family on our street? Because it's a great opportunity to do that. It is a time, in some cases, when communities, you get to know your neighbours, and that's a great thing. And you want to be a friend to people, and you don't want to be completely away from people. Taking opportunities to get to know your neighbours is a good thing, and we want to share the light of Jesus with them. Of course we do, but building that relationship is important too, and can be a bridge to that as well. And just showing love to people and not pushing people away is something that is part of what it means to be a Christian as well. So where have we got to? It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to navigate, and but we want to sort of start that conversation. I think not talking about it is not that helpful, and there's actually can be great opportunities for people to get to know their neighbours through it as well. So have a look at the resources on the website.
Good. Thank you. Right, I think we're coming up to the end, but we have 4 more weeks left of this series before we hit Christmas. Wow. And this week is on depression. I think the following week the gift day?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we're talking about money.
So tell us a bit about what's coming up.
Yeah, so in this series on anxiety and mental health, so depression is the top reported mental health problem. Okay, so this is the thing that's affecting most people if they have a mental health issue, and so it's really important that we talk about it, and the prevalence of it is increasing all the time, which is really something that you could say in one sense is surprising when we in our society have more access to opportunities and knowledge and technological advance that has benefited our lives so much, but yet we're seeing increasingly dissatisfaction with life, and there are many different reasons for that, and it's a very complicated thing that's going on. And I'm sure part of it is depression has always been a problem, and it's just now being more diagnosed, which is a good thing. And so that is probably, I'm sure, is a factor in the stats about it. But yeah, so we'll be unpacking that on Sunday coming, and we'll be looking at how do we find hope. There are different experiences when it comes to depression. For some people, it will be feeling low, going through a dark season. For some people, depression will mean they can't get out of bed for a long period of time, and that's real. And how do those people connect with God? And what can we do if this is something that's really prevalent in our society? Then if we're not suffering from it right now, we will know someone who is, someone that we work with, someone in our family. And how do we get alongside people, encourage, point them to Jesus, but not use Jesus as a stick to beat people with? As it can, I just believe this and that sort of thing. We want to help and get alongside, and that's what God does to us. He comes into our darkness. He leads us through. He is with us in it, and so all those things we'll be unpacking on Sunday.
Sounds like it'll be a great message. Thank you. I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
See you soon.